Hi everyone, and welcome to our webinar discussing the variety of soldier settlement records held in the New South Wales State Archives Collection. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge First Nations people of the various lands on which we meet. I would like to acknowledge First Nations peoples as keepers of languages and cultures that enrich our connection to country. As the oldest knowledge holders and first record holders and archivists of cultural heritage connected to the lands we live and work on today, I extend this respect to all First Nations people and elders past and present. So to start off this webinar, I wanted to explain a bit more about what the Soldier Settlement Scheme in Australia was and how it was implemented in the state of New South Wales. As is often the case when researching records in our collection, it's important to understand the legislation underpinning government schemes that operated at the time, like the Soldier Settlement Scheme. To do this, we have to start over a decade prior to the First World War with the passing of the first New South Wales Closer Settlement Act in 1901. This act allowed the government to acquire private lands or lands leased from the Crown for the purposes of closer settlement. The object of this and subsequent legislation was to convert large estates into closely settled communities engaged in agriculture. However, this first act failed to provide the state government with powers of compulsory resumption for this purpose, making the legislation effectively inoperative. It was therefore not long before the initial act was repealed with the introduction of the new Closer Settlement Act in 1904. This act allowed the government to resume private land for the purpose of closer settlement, as well as allowing freehold landowners to surrender private land to the government at specified prices. In 1910, the closer settlement provisions were expanded by the Closer Settlement Promotion Act, which allowed eligible people to negotiate with landowners to purchase their private land through closer settlement. Upon approval by the minister, the private landowner would surrender the area to the Crown and the purchaser would acquire it as a settlement purchase. So in 1916, with the First World War fully underway and with hundreds of servicemen, often injured, beginning to return to Australia, concerns about the settling of these men and their overseas compatriots became an increasingly discussed topic in government. Sending these men to settle the country became a popular solution, and soldier settlement became a key repatriation policy across the whole of Australia. A collaboration between both federal and state governments, the implementation of the scheme varied state to state. In New South Wales, the Return Soldier Settlement Act 1916 was passed, which allowed returned soldiers to settle on Crown land, as well as land acquired under the already established closer settlement legislation. Those eligible would be able to access financial assistance for essentials such as the clearing and fencing of land, the erection of buildings, and the purchasing of machinery and stock. Eligible people not only included returned Australian soldiers, but also nurses who had served in the war, as well as veterans from Britain. In time, widows of these men were also permitted to take up a holding. So the next major reform in soldier settlement policy wouldn't occur until 1941 in the midst of the Second World War, with the passing of the War Service Land Settlement Act. While we do hold some records relating to this later period, this webinar is really only going to be focusing on records relating to soldier settlement prior to the passing of this act. So from the very beginning of the Soldier Settlement Scheme in New South Wales, the government faced criticism for the poor implementation and administration of the scheme. Within just 5 years of passing the Return Soldier Settlement Act, a Royal Commission into the administration of the New South Wales Department of Lands was held following allegations of corruption and numerous complaints from soldier settlers regarding issues such as the defective workmanship in the construction of buildings, the preparation of the land for use, and irritating and unnecessary delays. Several inquiries from other state and Commonwealth governments would follow over the next decade, and by the late 1920s, soldier settlement was already considered a policy failure. Many of those who obtained soldier settlement land were quickly driven off their blocks as they continually faced challenges and hardships. although approximately 40,000 returned servicemen and women acquired land via this scheme, less than half of them remained on their blocks 15 years later. A 1929 government report attributed the failure of these settlements to the lack of necessary capital, land and home maintenance areas, the inexperience and lack of training provided to the settlers in agriculture, and the drop in agricultural prices throughout the 1920s. At the same time, the sheer numbers of men applying for land far exceeded the numbers anticipated, exacerbating these existing issues. During this time, public opinion of the government scheme continued to sour, particularly among those veterans who had been affected by this poor administration, with the scheme being referred to as a policy of pauperism. In a scathing article on the scheme published by The Truth in 1921, one such veteran declared, "For a reason or reasons best known to themselves, the government are out to drive us from our homes and to reduce ourselves and our families to the level of paupers." Soldier settlement has also had a lasting impact on First Nations communities across Australia. In order to provide large quantities of agricultural land, governments across Australia revoked or reduced the size of Aboriginal reserves, driving First Nations people off their land so that they could be used and reallocated as soldier settlement blocks. At the same time, First Nations soldiers who should have been entitled to such blocks found every possible impediment to obtaining and keeping them placed in their way. Many of these men were discouraged to apply altogether. So that was just a very brief overview of the soldier settlement scheme. I'm now going to be talking about some of the various records that are held within our collection that relate to these soldier settlement holdings. Just a quick reminder that although soldier settlement was implemented across Australia, our records and today's presentation is only going to relate to those holdings within the state of New South Wales. Many of our soldier settlement series have actually been indexed to help assist you in locating and accessing the records. So this involved volunteers going through thousands of files and registers and recording names and details of the people mentioned. So a huge shout out to our dedicated volunteers who worked tirelessly to index these records. Without their hard work, these files would remain elusive and difficult to access. So in total, we have 6 separate indexes to soldier settlement records on our website. For those of you who are unfamiliar with our indexes, these can be located by going to our homepage at mhnsw.au and clicking Explore State Archives. Then selecting Subjects A to Z. Our Subjects A to Z page is where you can find our online guides, indexes, articles, and webinars relating to a wide variety of research topics. You can scroll through an alphabetical listing of topics or use the pane at the top of the page to jump to the topic you are looking for. So today I'm going to click on S and find the topic Soldier Settlement. You can then limit to just end indexes and select whichever one you would like to search. Please be aware when we're talking about these indexes that there are some names that are mentioned in these files which are not returned servicemen or women. So you kind of have to look at the files to get a sense. Alternatively, you can search across all our indexes and items via our online catalogue. A quick tip for searching our catalogue, you can use the Tweak My Results panel to limit your results to only the indexes or the series that you want. So we can see here that there are 5 returned soldier transfer files for this gentleman. So I can limit to that specific index just to see what files they are. So the first index I wanted to talk to you about was our Soldier Settlement Purchases Index 1905 to 1937. With over 9,700 entries, this index includes our series NRS 8076, Registers of Settlement Purchases, which were created and maintained by the closest settlement branch of the Lands Department. It also includes registers of settlement purchases maintained by local land district agents. So please be aware that not all the smaller land agent registers in our collection have been listed. So if you want to check if your district has been listed, a full listing of all the series included can be found on the index page on our website. The volumes in this index are primarily an accounting record and provide details of sales and payments for land under settlement purchase schemes, including information such as the land district, the settlement purchase number, the name of the purchaser and the date of selection, number of farm, area, and details of payments made. So here I have the index up from the website, and I've searched for Michael Coffey and gotten 2 results relating to 2 different settlement purchases in Forbes. I'm interested in this ladle settlement purchase, so that's the register I'm going to call up and have a look at. So the entry relating to Coffey's settlement purchase is at the bottom half of the page. And you can see from this example that the register entries can be pretty bare and provide pretty limited information, mostly relating to the payments made on the property. However, this register does tell us that the settlement purchase was transferred from Coffey to a Frank Black. And it also tells us that the land is a subdivision of a different settlement purchase, number 26 of 1920 in the district Forbes. So if you're interested in the land itself, this would provide you with another avenue for research. As mentioned before, not all of these registers, the smaller registers in our collection, have been included in the index. So if this was the case for your land district, you can search our catalogue to see if we hold registers by using the keyword settlement purchase and the name of the land district. So in this example, I've searched for settlement purchase in Goulburn and have located a series from Goulburn Crown Land Agent, which covers the period 1911 to 1927. And this series is not included in our index. So if I wanted to have a look at that, I'd have to call up the physical records and see. The second index I wanted to talk to you about is our index to soldier or closer settlement transfer registers, 1919 to 1925. So this index has over 4,900 entries and was created from our series of soldier settlement transfer registers. These registers record dealings relating to settlement purchases, such as their sale, their mortgaging, or the release of the land. So you can search the transfers of settlement purchase by the name of the land holder, the transferee, the estate name, and the settlement purchase number. So here I've searched the online index for John Wilfred Donoghue and have located a single entry. The entry tells me that John Wilfred Donoghue transferred settlement purchase number 41 for the year 1920, Estate Biddles, Land District Bellingen, to Horace Ambrose Smith on the 1st of February 1923. Looking at the register itself, we can see that it provides limited additional information. The entry for this dealing can be found halfway down the page. As well as what we saw in the index, the register does tell us that this was a sale of the land rather than a mortgage or a release of mortgage, and the land went for a price of £170. What is probably going to be more of interest to you is the index to return soldier transfer files, 1907 to 1951. This index has over 9,600 entries and was created directly from our 2 series of transfer files, NRS 8054 and NRS 8055. While the first series is fully indexed, the second series is only partly indexed, meaning that some of the files are not included. These transfer files are typically quite small and contain a standardized form relating to the transfer. The form records for each transfer by sale, mortgage, or release, names of the transferor and the transferee, residence, occupation, or designation of each, settlement purchase number, and details of the land and the estate. Some files can also include declarations, related forms, and a small amount of correspondence. The index can be searched by name, residence, parish, county, estate name, and settlement purchase number. So here I've conducted the same search I did when searching the registers, searching for a John William Donoghue, except this time I've gotten 3 results instead of 1. So this index seems to be a bit more comprehensive. The remarks tell us that 2 of the files relate to a mortgage and a release of mortgage on the property. But in this instance, I'm going to be looking at that middle file. So this is the document itself, and it relates to the transfer of sale from John Donoghue to Horace Ambrose Smith. So those names might sound familiar as they were the same ones that we looked at in the register. And the document itself does provide limited information, but it also includes, their names, their details of the land, as well as the signatures of both parties. Our Soldier Settlement Miscellaneous Files Index, 1916, is our smallest soldier settlement index with only 1,050 entries. It indexes a small number of boxes in our series of Return Soldier Settlement Miscellaneous Files, which contain qualification certificate applications for soldiers. When applying for land under the Return Soldier Settlement Act, an ex-serviceman was required to present a qualification certificate with his application. This certificate was a declaration of his or her status as an ex-service person and eligibility for land. The index provides details such as the name of the serviceman, their residence, land district, and the class of holding that was required. So here I've searched the online index for George Gordon Curtis and retrieved one result. The record itself consists of a standardized application form across 2 pages. So the first page will provide the applicant's name, address, and the details of the holding they're hoping to apply for, whereas the second page provides further details about their service and their status, their current status. So George Curtis reports that he was a member for the Australian Imperial Force who served for 1 year and 220 days in both Egypt and Gallipoli. He was discharged in 1916 after being deemed medically unfit. He writes of his health, stating that he is deaf in his left ear, but is in otherwise good health. He is married with no children and is hoping to take up orchiding on the settlement area. A qualification certificate was issued to him on the 20th of November, 1916. The next index is one of the most interesting and valuable ones that I've talked to you about so far, our online Soldier Settlement Loan Files Index 1906 to 1960. So this indexes all of our series of returned soldiers settlement loan files and can be searched by the name of their soldier, their locality, and the land district where the land is held. So some index entries can also provide key information, such as the name of the estate, or the tenure number. So these files typically can contain the original application from the soldier settler for a loan, a report on the land from the local repatriation committee, and related correspondence. The size and level of detail in each file can vary, but can tell us some valuable information about the work and struggles faced by these returned servicemen and women. So here I've searched our online settlement loans files index for a William Dennis and gotten 2 results. Now looking at the results, I know my person lived at Dora Creek, not Colin Ruby, so it's the second file I'm going to be looking at. So here we have the original application for a loan from William Frederick Dennis. This application tells us that William Frederick Dennis of Dora Creek is applying for a loan of £500 to be used for the completion of a dwelling, the purchase of a horse and farming implements, the purchase of fruit trees, as well as the clearing and fencing of the land. So this is clearly some of the necessities he needs to get the farm up and running. You can also see that some details about William's war service is provided, including his register number, his rank and unit, as well as details of his enlistment and discharge. During William's service, he spent a total of 3 years and 192 days abroad. The application also provides key details of the land which William holds, including county, parish, portion, and lot numbers, which can assist you in finding further records, evaluation of the land, as well as details of any private leases held. So here we can see that 2 lots in Parish Currumbung are being leased by William for a period of 5 years from a Jane Dennis of Dora Creek, likely a relation. Further details provided on this application can include particulars of stock, farming plants, machinery, and improvements, although in this instance, William has not provided any of those particulars. So after receiving William's application for a loan, the Return Soldier Settlement branch of the Lands Department instructs the local repatriation committee in Dora Creek to furnish a report on the land to them. And as you can see, the complete report is quite bare in this instance and consists of just a single statement. This committee considers that the freehold does not comprise a living area and the leasehold does not commend itself. So essentially what they're saying is that the land itself did not qualify for a loan under their current requirements. And on the 7th of September 1921, William has sent a letter from the Lands Department to this effect, stating that no advance can be made as his holding is considered to be too small and not sufficient for home maintenance requirements. And sadly, there's no further correspondence from William in this file, but despite this setback, he does continue to persevere on his land. Not all of these loan files ended quite so civilly. Irvine Hill, a soldier settler who established an orchid farm on his block, entered into an intense battle of correspondence after he was denied reimbursement for the work he had done and structures he had erected on the property, with a district officer claiming that an incoming settler might consider them a disfigurement and not an improvement. In one of many letters to the department, Irvine writes, "You people seem determined not to carry out justice to me. I now claim £500 for you enforcing slavery. I gave you a fair deal. I will now, for the last time, give you 7 days to supply me with my full claim, including the £500 for the enforced slavery for my labour." His final letter, still demanding justice, is dated November 1922 and has a single annotation on it written by the department. No reply is necessary. Irvine's anger and sense of injustice is something that is echoed across many of these soldiers' loan files. So the final index I wanted to discuss in this webinar is our Soldier Closer Settlement Promotion Files Index, which dates from 1913 to 1958. So this index is just part of our series of Closer Settlement Promotion Files. And this record series was created under the promotion provisions of the Closer Settlement legislation, which you might remember from before, expanded the scheme to allow purchasing of private land as a settlement purchase upon agreement by the landowner, the applicant, and the Minister of Lands. So the files record the details of the purchase and the subsequent dealings between the landowner or vendor, the purchaser or purchasers, and the Department of Lands. A promotion file may relate to an estate that houses several soldier settlers across multiple blocks of land. So those files, for those files that aren't included in the index, a listing by the estate name is available via our reading room. So that's another way to access them. So as these files are primarily about the acquisition of an estate, they may contain records such as the original application from a soldier settler to bring the land under closer settlement, surveyor's plans, notes, and reports on the land, evaluation or appraisement of the land, and related correspondence. This is the original application to bring Heaton's estate in the Newcastle Land District under closer settlement. The applicant is former soldier William Henry Barlow of Warrenco. Born in London in 1876, Barlow had been residing in the state of New South Wales since 1905. A farmer by trade, he had most recently been employed as a carrier. At the time of his application, he was supporting a wife and 3 children, ages 2, 4, and 7. His application tells us that Barlow served in the 7th Army Service Corps and was discharged 2 years after his enlistment when he was deemed medically unfit for service. Although he does not have any stock, machinery, wheat, or hay to put towards his settlement, Barlow has received a war gratuity of about £130. He is requesting financial assistance to the amount of £625 to establish himself on the estate. The file also provides us with these wonderful plans and details about the land. We can see from the plan on the left that the estate is on flat to gently undulating ground and is on good loam soil. A house, 2 wells, and some tanks are also marked out on the property. The valuation on the right provides further details. The property includes a house and kitchen with an iron roof, an underground tank, a shed with a bark roof, and a deep timbered well. At the time of the agreement, the property housed 30 summer fruit trees, 50 citrus trees, and 40 grapevines. What can be particularly wonderful and greatly varied within these files, however, is the correspondence itself. So this can include correspondence between the department and the applicant, as well as the department and the vendor. The promotion file for Heaton's estate includes extensive correspondence as tensions and bad feelings grew between Varlo and the vendor, a Mrs. Isabel Heaton. A months-long battle between the two parties resulted in Mrs. Heaton being forced to forfeit £10 of her purchase money for failing to properly prepare and plough the land for Varlo. In a final scathing letter to the department, Mrs. Heaton has her final word. As it were a private individual, one could get redress in a court of law, but when it happens to be the government that robs you, one has to take it lying down. There is nothing else to do. I have one satisfaction left. Before God's judgment seat, the facts of this case will be revealed, and then shall all the unjust set their deserts. In this case all through, I have spoken and written only the truth. I have been defrauded and robbed of £10 of my hard-earned money, money that my little children are in need of, money that should have gone to buy them warm clothes for the winter. Be it so. Someday, Mr. Pulver and those who worked with him to defraud me shall get their deserts. I say no more, only when I read of the revolutionary spirit spreading, I do not wonder. How can one respect a thing that has robbed you? Whether Liberal or Labor, they are all alike. So now that I've covered the various soldier settlement indexes we have, I wanted to spend a bit of time highlighting the other unindexed files that you might not be aware of. Our series of closer settlement estate files can be very similar to the promotion files that we were just talking about. Each file relates to a different closer settlement estate. Although the files haven't been indexed, we do have item listings of these files in our reading room, which can be searched by the name of the estate. Much like the promotion records, these files can contain applications from hopeful settlers, surveyors' plans, notes and reports on the land, the valuation and appraisement of the land, as well as related correspondence. Some estates have separate files within both this series and the promotion files, so it's always worth checking both. The file that I've chosen to highlight today relates to the Chillingham estate, a soldier group purchase area in Tweed Shire. The land was originally purchased by the Crown from Edith Alice Loader, who held it as a conditional purchase lease. It was then advertised by the Department of Lands as a soldiers group purchase area. A copy of the poster advertising the estate was found in the estate file and can be seen on the left of the screen. Several applications for the land were received, with many being swiftly ruled out as they were deemed unsuitable candidates. Applications from both successful and unsuccessful candidates can be found within the file, including that of Hector Russell Clark, aged 22. So here we can see that Hector Clark is currently residing in Chowan Creek, is married, and already has one 2-year-old son to support. His application is supported by a letter from Clark himself, highlighting his variety of agricultural experience and his capital, as well as a letter of reference from James Irving. Irving writes, I have been intimately acquainted with Hector Russell Clark for the last 16 years. During that time, as boy and man, he has been connected with all kinds of farm work, bush clearing, dairying, and cultivating. I have every confidence in him and believe that if successful, he will be a good farmer and will succeed in life. Sadly, correspondence from the next year does confirm that Clark was ultimately unsuccessful in securing this land. And here I've just put on the screen some surveyor's plan of the property. These kinds of plans are some of my favorite things within these files. And if you look closely on the plan on the right, you'll notice that the primary form of agriculture on this property is actually banana farming. So the areas where the bananas are growing are very nicely sketched out for all of us to see. And so now we've finally reached our last series of files that we're going to be talking about today. Unlike the promotion and estate files, which are concerned with the acquisition and the establishment of these estates, these files were primarily concerned with the maintenance of an individual land tenure or settlement purchase. Each file can differ greatly, but typically can contain a variety of correspondence between the settler themselves and the Lands Department. Such is the case for file number 649, which relates to a settlement purchase in Narrandera. The tenure was held by returned soldier Walter Hannington Mattingly. Walter was just 26 years old when he was enlisted in 1917 and was previously a blacksmith. Upon his return and taking up of the farm, he continually faced misfortune and financial struggles, causing him to be late on payments on his property. In 1926, he writes to the Lands Department regarding his debt. "I am owing then a fair amount now, and I only wish I could pay it off and have a fair go, but it never seemed my luck. I had the misfortune to have my crop burnt this last year while I was in hospital, and the little I got out of it only squared my storekeeper and left me with nothing." Soon after this first letter, the Lands Department received correspondence for R. Hankinson Limited, a merchant and importer company, regarding Mattingly's crop. They write, "It is a matter of regret that Mattingly has had a very poor crop. In viewing of the season generally, this is hard to understand. We have practically carried him on for 2 years. He has not been able to clear his account. We have advised Mattingly to sell his farm if he can't do better. He is a very steady man. His position is not the outcome of neglect." Unfortunately, Mattingly's financial position continued to suffer. In another letter to the department, he writes, "I only wish I could square your department right up, as this being in debt is a damned uphill battle, and one gets very sick of it. I tell you, if it wasn't for the few pounds my mother has helped me with, I don't know how I would get on. I had the place on the market, but nobody seemed to want it. I never had any inquiry about it, although it had 226 acres of fallow on it. So I had to sow it and carry on to see if I can't get ahead." So as these correspondence files are currently not indexed or listed, they can be challenging to search and locate the file that you're after. However, there are ways to track down the right file if you know how and are dedicated to the search. And I certainly think they are worth the reward. Each land tenure was given a file number, with each new piece of correspondence being filed at that number. The most reliable way to locate a file number is to check the relevant Crown Land Tenure card from our series NRS 18658. Cards can be located if you know the land district and tenure or settlement purchase number. So this is the card relating to the Heaton's estate in the land district of Newcastle. We can see on the top right-hand corner that the relevant file number for this tenure is 7554. New South Wales Government Gazette notices can also provide this file number. So here we have a notice relating to the same property. You'll see at the end there is a paper reference for closer settlement file 7554, document 42. New South Wales Government Gazettes can be searched via the National Library of Australia's Trove website. And finally, Crown plans can also include references to these file numbers. This is the Crown plan for the Heaton's estate. In the annotations, we can see another reference to closer settlement file number 7554, this time relating to document 57 within that file. View-only copies of Crown plans can be accessed via the kiosk version of the New South Wales Land Registry's Historical Lands Records Viewer, or HLRV, in our reading room. And I'd like to thank New South Wales Land Registry for allowing us to use images of Crown plans in our webinars to help you know how to use them. So now that we've talked about some of the wonderful soldier settlement records we have in our collection, how can you get started researching a soldier settler yourself? So one of the challenges in conducting this kind of research is that many people start off with only a name. However, you need to know a bit more information than a name to access all the soldier settlement records in our collection. So key information to look out for includes the county, parish, portion numbers, land district, estate name, and settlement purchase or other tenure number. The easiest way to find some of this key information using the name of a soldier settler is by searching our online indexes. So as we've shown, each index can provide a variety of information on both the soldier and the land. So in this example, I'm searching for information relating to soldier settler William Randall Raper. These index entries tell me that he held settlement purchase number 17 for the year 1920 in the parish of Creighton, County Hume. The name of the estate is Balfours. New South Wales Government Gazettes are also a great way to find a soldier settler and these key details about their land. As mentioned, New South Wales Government Gazettes are digitised and searchable via the Trove website. So here we have the Gazette notice for William's settlement purchase. Provided in this notice is all the key information we need. In addition to what we learned from the index entry, we can see that the land is located in the land district of Albury and is portion number 123 in the parish of Creighton. So finally, if you already have an idea of what parish the settlement might be in, parish maps, which can be viewed from home via the New South Wales Land Registry's HLRV database, can tell us this key information. Areas dedicated to settlement purchases are typically highlighted in red on the parish maps, making them easier to spot. So this is portion 123 of the parish map, and you can see it lists W.R. Raper as the landowner or the landholder. It also lists the estate name and the settlement purchase number. Details about the land district and county are also typically provided. So now that you've located some of that essential information, what do you do next? So unfortunately, none of the soldier settlement records we have discussed today are currently digitised, and they're also not included in our online copy service. So these records will need to be viewed in our Western Sydney reading room. Records found in our online indexes can be pre-ordered in advance and ready for you on the day that you arrive. And when you arrive in the reading room, you can ask the archivist for help in locating and ordering up any additional records which aren't included in our indexes. So that may involve looking at those physical listings available in our reading room. And if you're hitting a roadblock in your research or simply require any further advice, please don't hesitate to contact us for assistance via our email and phone inquiry services. While we don't offer a research service, we are always happy to point you in the right direction. So what should you take away from today's webinar? Well, we have many indexes to soldier settlement records in our collection that you can search from home. We have multiple files across different series that relate to the same estate or soldier settler. And not all of these files are indexed, so you may have to do some digging to find the best information. Records can be accessed via our Western Sydney reading room, and we are always here to help and point you in the right direction.